All right, today is Motivational Monday. Motivational Monday. We're getting it in. We're getting it in. The hidden reasons why you lose motivation and how to fix it for good. And so if you see me look up, you see me look down, I'm looking at my notes, guys. And one of the things that we constantly talk about is motivation. And so when we think about motivation, one of the things that I must say is that people believe, and I think at some point we all believe that motivation is something that just comes automatic. But I'm here to tell you, I like to disrupt thought processes. So I'm here to tell you that motivation isn't constant. No, it is fleeting. Motivation is fleeting. Why is that? So today we're going to talk about reasons you lose your motivation and how you can find it. Okay. Today is Motivational Monday. So I thought this would be fantastic. Because we're always talking about how we need motivation. And so one of the things that is probably in our mental dominant attitude is I can always have motivation. It always comes. I'll always have it. No, that's the right. Hey, Erica Essie, thank you for joining. In my mind, that is not so. So let's talk about the hidden reasons you lose motivation and how to fix it. So for anyone that's joining, we're talking about motivation. Today is Motivational Monday. And most people believe that motivation is constant. That is not true. Good morning, my friend. That's not true. So if you see me look down, you see me look up, I'm actually looking at notes on the computer as well as in my little notebook here. First and foremost, motivation is not constant. It is fleeting. Motivation is never constant. So why do we say that? Because you don't stay motivated. Quite often, you can stay committed even if the motivation fades. And one of the things I always talk about is discipline. So if someone is disciplined enough for something, right? If you're disciplined enough, quite often the more disciplined you become, the more that motivation actually kicks in. Most people don't believe that, but again, I am here to disrupt the thought process. So how many times have you started something and you did it until the motivation ran out? Think about that. You actually did it until the motivation ran out. You only stop when motivation runs out, right? Think about that. So the reason we're talking about it is because quite often we wait on motivation, and instead of waiting on motivation, if we become disciplined, we become committed. And if we're committed, then that's when the motivation quite often comes in. And think about someone who works out. Think about that. If you're a person that work out, if you're a person that has a fantastic eating plan, if you're a person that maybe has specific goals, when you think about those goals, as you begin to hit the goal, you get even more motivated. But here's the piece. You've already been committed to that goal. You were already disciplined. And so as you begin to hit those goals, you actually begin to get even more motivated. You see how that works out. Motivation quite often deals with emotions. And so what I'm helping you to appreciate is we can stop waiting for motivation. Instead, we have to create systems that propel us forward. Okay, does that make sense? So let's stop waiting on motivation, but create a system that's going to help us to move forward. So what do I mean by system? When we talk about hitting goals as well as maintaining goals, quite often we have a system in place. And what impacts us the most actually is that if we don't have a system, then quite often we can't remain committed. And if we can't remain committed, then we won't be disciplined. And if we won't be disciplined, then we won't hit the goal. So it's a strategy. When we actually have a strategy for success, then we begin to hit goal. Okay, does that make sense? Thank you so much for liking the live. Guys, if you deem this information worthy of someone else knowing, please continue to tap your screen, get other people in. And as they come in, they'll get this information as well, right? So what are some motivation killers? Number one, most people, now this is a disruption of the thought process. Think about it. Hey, C. Marie, thank you for joining. Most people don't lose motivation. They lose belief in themselves. Self-doubt, number one killer. Self-doubt is the number one killer. Hi, how's your son, C. Marie? Self-doubt is the number one killer. Most people don't lose motivation. They lose belief in themselves. They lose belief in themselves. What is that belief like? What if I fail? What if no one sees what I'm doing? What if I'm not good enough? What if I, and here's the interesting part. I think if you could, quote unquote, have a setback, he's giving me a hard time. It'll get better. The family's doing fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you. I appreciate that. Hang in there, C. Marie. Of course, of course. But here's the piece. I don't think it's that we have a setback, right? And you're welcome, C. Marie. But if we have a setback in front of everybody, that's the challenge, right? So we have a setback, big deal. But when we have a setback in front of everybody, that's when the challenge comes in. And so because of that, it creates a mental block. And when a mental block is created, guess what? It drains the energy before we even begin to start again. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So that mental block is draining the energy. So the question becomes, where are you going to focus your energy? Where are you going to focus your efforts? Think about that, right? When we talk about commitment, when we talk about discipline, when we talk about mind shifting, all of those things require us to come out of our comfort zone. And as we come out of our comfort zone, a common thought quite often is, what if I fail? What if other people see me? What if I'm not good enough? What if it doesn't work? We go through this what if, but can we adjust that to even if? Even if I have a setback, I will continue. Even if this happens, I will keep moving forward. Even if there's a challenge, I will keep going, right? We always talk about what if, but what about the even if, which puts a positive spin on it. And so in essence, we are rewiring our mind. We're rewiring our thought process. Keep in mind, our brain's number one job is to keep us safe. The brain's number one job is to keep us safe. So those feelings that we feel about the what if this happens, what if this doesn't happen? Listen, the brain's job is to keep us safe. As soon as we begin to tiptoe out of the safe zone, all of the thoughts come in. All of the thoughts come in. And that's why I constantly talk about mind shifting to success. Guys, please continue to tap your screen. Thank you so much for those that are joining. When you tap your screen, you'll see a red button go to the right. As it goes to the right, other people will join, right? So let's adjust the self-doubt, right? And the self-doubt creates the mental roadblock. When it creates that mental roadblock, keep in mind, our brain is wired. Thank you so much for the gifts. It's wired for comfort, not success. I want you guys to understand that. And the reason it's wired for comfort is because when you feel those, what do you call it? Anxiety, when you get nervous. And quite often people don't realize this. When you start talking about anxiety, it comes in different forms, just to be clear. When you get nervous, that's a form of anxiety. When you feel areas on your body sweat that don't normally sweat, guys, when I get nervous, like my fingertips get I actually get cold, and then I'll kind of calm down, right? But what I'm trying to help you to appreciate is the reason why the motivation to do something may seem so hard is because we have to have a system, a strategy. And when we do not have a system or a strategy, what happens is we begin to get these mental roadblocks. And as we send the mental roadblocks, the one thing we don't do or don't think about is that our brain is wired for success. And our brain is wired for comfort. And since it does not want us, quite often, it doesn't allow us to succeed. It's because we want to stay comfortable. But if we stay comfortable, it keeps us in the loop. What is the loop? I shoulda, I coulda, I didn't do this. I want to do this and I didn't. Let's come out of the loop. Self-doubt creates mental roadblocks. Let's come out of the loop. Your brain is wanting to keep you comfortable. Come out of the loop. So what can we do? Number one thing we can do, take small daily wins. Confidence comes from doing, not overthinking. Confidence comes from doing something, putting something into action, having a plan, having a strategy. You have to do it. You have to put in some work. All right. So that's number one. Today, guys, if you all are joining, thank you so much. We're talking about motivation. Since it's Motivational Monday, I figure why not? And the number one motivational killer is self-doubt. Write that down in your notebook. The number one motivation killer is self-doubt. Why is it number one? Because it deals with the mind. It deals with our mind. And our mind is wired for comfort. It is not wired for success. Right? So we will have mental roadblocks. But how can we get past that? Take one small step into doing something, which means if you take the step, the hope is you have a strategy. If you have a strategy, fantastic. The more you take steps, the more you become confident. Okay? So, number two, challenge number two when it comes to motivation, the discipline versus motivation shift. Motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a decision. I love that. I love that. Motivation is a feeling. There's nothing wrong with having emotions. Now, one thing wrong with having emotions. The challenge is emotions tend to blur lines. They tend to blur lines. And if it blurs the lines, then quite often I will not be disciplined enough to take the next step. The people who are not relying on motivation, but more so rely on discipline, those are the ones that have success. So what does discipline mean? It simply means that I'm being consistent even when I don't want to. It simply means I am remaining consistent even when I don't want to. Again, a strategy. A strategy should be in tow, right? So when we talk about having a strategy, keep in mind that a strategy helps to build us for success. Remember, I already talked about our brain is wired for comfort, not for success. Success literally is not a destination. At least I don't feel it is. Again, I like to disrupt the mental thought process. It's not a destination. Success literally is a strategy. How do you become successful at something if you don't have a strategy? If we're just flying off the handle, that doesn't work. It does not help us. So with that being said, keep this in mind. Commit to small. Now we already said have small daily wins, but can you commit to something today that you know you can continue to do regardless? So as an example, I always talk about hitting goals and starting your morning off right? So when you wake up, first thing, at least for me, first thing I do when I wake up is I have a drink of water and I'm working out. Top two things I do. My day does not feel right if I'm not doing those two things. It feels a little off. And for me, it's actually challenging, right? So with that being said, let's look at micro wins, something small. What is something small you could do? Previously, we had a challenge, right? One of the challenges was don't touch your phone for 30 minutes. When you wake up, don't touch your phone. Put the phone to the side. Before you jump into everything that happens in the world, put your phone to the side. Don't touch it. Stretch and have some water. 3 things. Those are very small, but it actually started the discipline process for some of you. Some of you actually came back and said, I loved it. Thank you so much. It actually started me to be more disciplined about not touching my phone, about not jumping into the world's challenges. And I started my day with gratitude. Start the day with gratitude. Start the day with thinking on beautiful thoughts and how you can remain disciplined or committed to some of your goals. Okay, so that's number 2, discipline versus motivation. Small daily wins add up over time. And as it adds up over time, you will begin to actually hit your goals. You'll begin to hit your goals. Okay. All right. Now let's move to the power of purpose. You guys know I love purpose. That's one of the 5 P's. As we talk about strategies, the 5P transformation is what I've always talked about. Class actually starts tonight. I'm very excited. Very, very, very excited for class. So the 5P transformation, one of them is purpose. This actually is one of the best secrets ever that most people don't talk about. Your purpose is your why. And if you are unable to remain committed, if you're unable to remain disciplined, we always have to connect that back to your why. Now, quite often you hear me talk about emotion. I try to steer away from emotion quite a bit because emotion makes things too blurry. But your why, especially if it has logic behind it, the deeper your why is, the more you'll remain committed to whatever the goal is. Does that make sense? The deeper your why is, the more you'll remain committed to. Remember now, keep this in mind. Your brain, as we said earlier, does not want you to be successful, right? Because it's not committed to success, it's committed to comfort. But when we talk about the purpose, if you keep that in mind and you continue to reframe your thoughts, right? And those reframing of thoughts are positive based on your why, it's quite likely you will remain determined to hit the goal. It's quite likely that you'll keep your purpose in mind. It's quite likely that you'll not only hit the goal, but you can maintain it. If your why isn't big enough, then neither will your commitment be. There you have it, the secret. If your why is not big enough, then neither will your commitment be. You won't remain committed to it. Okay? And so we have to consider, at least from my perspective, we have to consider the why. The why. What is your why? So when you talk about adjusting your life, what is your why? See, Marie, thank you for that, right? When we talk about adjusting your life, what is your why? Is it your family? Is it because you need a new job? And I'm just throwing things out. You want a new house, a new job. You want to stay committed in the relationship. You need to leave the relationship, whatever that is, a work relationship, a home relationship, a friendship. Guys, what is your why? So my son can have better than I had. Absolutely. And see, Marie, I'm going to pin that comment. So now your son, that's a huge why. And so because that is a huge why, it's quite likely you'll remain committed to the goal. But here's what I want you to think about. When we are committed to the goal, do we hop on and hop off? When we're committed, do we hop on and hop off? Let me tell you what I mean by that. As an example, I'm committed to, I don't know, saving money. I'm just going to use that as an example. I am committed. But because I saw a pair of shoes I like, the $100 that I would normally put to the side, I spent that $100 at 9 West. Does that make sense? And then 2 weeks later, I hop back on the horse. 2 weeks later, I hop back on the horse. So I'm not saying that doesn't happen. What I'm saying is let's continue something that will take us over the threshold of any triggers we may have. Any triggers we may have. Right? So if we have triggers for, as an example, I like shoes. I like clothes. My husband's from Liberia. I like American clothes. I like African clothes. I like heels. I like all sorts of things. But it is a trigger for me when Ann Taylor sends me an email saying, hey, listen, that stuff is still in your cart. That's a trigger. So what do I have to do? I have to unsubscribe to the marketing emails. I have to unsubscribe from those things. And I'm just using me as an example. So my question for you is, your why has to pull you back in. What stops you from quitting? Delete the cart. I got to work on that, C. Marie, right? What stops me from remaining committed consistently? What stops you from remaining committed consistently, right? If your why isn't big enough, your commitment will not be big enough either. Let's keep that in mind, right? So it's no accident when we talk about the mind, I get bored with the goal and tired. Oh, thank you. You get bored with the goal. So you're my starter. My person that gets excited, let's go, let's do it. And then somewhere along the line, it kind of fizzles out. Is that who you are? Is that what we're talking about, C. Marie? Okay, got it. So for those people that are my starters and then they fizzle out, guess what? I got something for that too. It's a beautiful strategy for that. And that is in the 5P transformation. And here's why that's so beautiful. Because as you begin to remember your why, we begin to connect things to different goals. Meaning, let's just say you're here, you're at a base. You start off running, you're doing good. However, some of the goals in between your elevation and the base, you're missing out on. You're not connecting that back to your why. And some of those goals need to actually be, because if you're talking about getting bored, then what are those goals? If I can, as an example, if I know that I could save $1,000 next week, That's not a big enough goal for me. Because I already know I could do it. If I know that in the next 6 to 9 months I could buy a truck, maybe that's not a big enough goal. Does that make sense, C. Marie? Maybe some of the goals or some of the points that you have within your system, and again, you have to have a strategy, it does not really connect back to your why, or some of the things in between that in your strategy is not allowing, it's not pushing you, it's not pushing that growth, it's not pushing you forward, it's not allowing you to get forward because you're already there, already know how to do that. So now we need to know and understand, number one, what goal are you trying to hit? Number two, what is the strategy? And number three, what is the why? Those are some things on a deeper level that we would talk about. But I digress. But does that make sense? C. Marie, does that make sense? So guys, why do you want to hit the goal? Why does it matter? Is it big enough? Right? Write down, C. Marie, do me a favor when you get a chance. Write down your why. Write it down. And it doesn't have to be just one why. It could be dual purpose or three, you know what I mean? There are certain things that we do, and as we're actually doing it, it does not mean that's the only reason. Now, does it make sense to narrow it down and let that be your quote unquote North Star? Absolutely. But sometimes there's a few things that's going on, right? So again, guys, when we talk about starting something new and then we stop because we lose quote unquote motivation. Today is Motivational Monday, and that's what we've been talking about. And we lose motivation. There's a few things. One, we have to get committed. Two, we have to be disciplined. Three, we want to make sure we understand our why, which is the purpose of it. What is the purpose? Why are you doing it? Have you prepared? Have you planned? Have you practiced? Why do I say those things? That's part of the 5P transformation. But the other piece is all of those things go into a fantastic strategy. And if the strategy is not there, it's quite likely that you're not going to hit the goal. Quite likely you won't be motivated. Quite likely you're not going to have momentum. Quite likely the purpose has gone down the drain, right? You've kind of put that to the side. So think about those things. What's one thing that you could actually commit to this week? What's one thing you could commit to this week? And keep in mind, one of the biggest pieces is our mind. One of the biggest pieces is our mind, the mind trap that we have. So what is something that you can commit to this week? Keep in mind, your brain loves predictability. Your brain loves routine. Have you ever wondered why people stay in toxic relationships? It's a routine. I'm comfortable. Let me just stay here. I'll be okay. You ever wonder why people stay at jobs they hate? It's okay. The check is good. I'll just keep staying here until something else. She said right now. Exactly. Right now. Right? You wonder why people dream of success and they never take action? Because I like this comfort zone. But if you remain comfortable, you remain in the trap. And if you remain in the trap, or what I call the feedback loop, if you remain there, you stay in that loop. And as you stay in that loop, not only do you not have a strategy, but you never hit goal. You never hit goal. You stay and remain the same. So I guess the question becomes, what is the cost of you staying the same? I'll wait, because that might hit like a ton of bricks. What is the cost of you remaining the same? And guys, please continue to tap your screen. Get other people in. I typically stay on till 9, but get some more people in here, because the last 4 or 5 minutes, we can work this out. Let me see. It did. What's the cost of you staying the same, C. Marie? What's the cost of you staying the same, Erica? I see. What's the cost of you all staying the same? You never experience happiness and joy doing something you want to do. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. You never get to, so, okay, guys, let me break this down for you, because I've talked about this. You don't know what's possible. Absolutely. As a life coach, that's the number one thing we work on, possibilities and opportunities. Everything is an opportunity. Let me say this again. Everything is an opportunity. I don't care what you're doing. Everything is an opportunity. That's how I see it. Everything's an opportunity. An opportunity for what? A better life experience. An opportunity for what? Maybe based on whatever it is you're going through, Let's just talk about relationships for a moment. Now, I'm no relationship expert, but I'll say this. In the event that someone is in a relationship that is not going well, well, there's two opportunities there, especially if something is toxic. Two opportunities. One, there's an opportunity for both people to work it out and make it work. Two, the opportunity to leave. Keep in mind, guys, everything is a choice. See, Marie, I'm going to pin this one. Everything is a choice. And can we, just to say this, people often say, no, I don't have a choice. Lie. You have a choice. You have a choice in everything you do, especially when we talk about mind shifting to success. That is a choice to think of things that elevate with Vern. Thank you so much for joining. That is a choice to think of things, reframing them in a positive light. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for joining. Right? So when we think of things in a positive light, what are we doing? We're mind shifting to success. We're rewiring our brain. Remember last week we talked about rewire, reframe, relearn. Rewire, we're reframing it, and then we relearn. Why is that necessary? Because how am I supposed to look at things from a positive perspective if I am not rewiring my brain, if I am not adjusting my thoughts? It's inevitable. If I look at everything with roses and green grass and sunshine and rainbows, in my mind, you look fresh and beautiful. Oh, thank you, Jillian. I appreciate that. In my mind, everything, all the possibilities and opportunities around me are roses and rainbows and sunshine, right? That's how I see it. So what I'm helping you to appreciate is as we rewire our mind, it is necessary for us to reframe everything. We have to, let me put my eye close to the screen. We have to reframe everything. If you do not begin to reframe, and when I say everything, I'm talking about the opportunities and the possibilities, which are always positive based on your life experience, based on what's happening in your situation, based on your circumstance. Hence the reason why the 5P transformation is a strategy for that. Success is not a destination. It is a strategy. And if you're looking to have the opportunities, if you're looking to have the experience, if you're looking to come from this place of comfort to success, that is a complete life transformation. And you look at everything from the possibility of this is an opportunity to better my life experience. Better your life experience. So with that being said, what are we committing to? What are we committing to? How are we doing things? The cost of you remaining the same is that you remain in the feedback loop. The cost of that is heavy. The weight is heavy. If you remain in the feedback loop, and just to be clear, remaining in the feedback loop is different for everybody. My feedback, and keep in mind, when you decide, when you make a decision, when you have a choice, believe me, there's a response back. That response back is where you begin to pivot and adjust as necessary. So I'm going to give you an example. I decided to get a new job. This is just an example. I'm vying for this job. I got the job. I get the job. When I get the job, I truly don't see everything that's happening until I'm actually in it. Is that a disappointment? Absolutely. But how can I look at that from a different perspective? Well, a few ways. One, a gratuitous attitude, gratitude. I'm thankful I have a job. Quite often, many people are continuing to look. Number two, well, while in this job, let me learn as much as I can because I can take those skills somewhere else when I'm ready. Three, I'm disciplined enough to get up and remain committed to what I've essentially said I want. And if necessary, I can adjust based on whatever is happening there. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we have the ability of, oh, you know what? I really didn't want, no. You made the choice, right? If we made the choice, let's stick it out until we can adjust. That's it. So when we say things like, I don't have a choice, I can't decide, the decision wasn't mine, it's always your decision. It's always your choice. It's just a matter of how you follow through with it. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? If you put a 1 in the comments, I'll know what I just said made sense. So with that being said, today we were talking about Motivational Monday, and we're talking about motivation and how our motivation, thank you. Thank you for the ones. Okay, got it. We're talking about how our motivation helps with reaching our goals, but some of the challenges. And the biggest piece, motivation, don't get me wrong, it's okay. But the biggest piece we have to hone in on is rewiring our mind, because our mind is set up for comfort. It's not set up for success. And if it's not set up for success, that means that most of the work is here. Once we get that through here, the mind trap is what I like to call it, because it is a trap. Once we get the work here, then guess what? Then our actions will come in harmony with it. Okay? So with that being said, it is 9:03. Thank you for the follow, AIM. I appreciate that. Thank you for the follow. With that being said, today is the first day of class, the 5P transformation. We are going to enjoy ourselves. Oh, AIM, thank you for that. We're going to enjoy ourselves. The next class will be in March. I hope listen, if you're ready to come out of your comfort zone, if you're ready for something different, if you're ready to adjust your life, if you're ready for a new experience, if you're just completely ready for the transformation, declutter your mind. Let's go. Look at things differently. And there is a strategy for doing it. Okay, so it is 9:04. I am 4 minutes past, but I certainly do appreciate the comments. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for the gifts. I hope you guys have a fantastic Motivational Monday. And I will be back here tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat place. I'll talk to you all later. Bye. Let me see. I will mark my calendar if you tell me the next class date again. Okay, so AIM, the next class is going to be in March. Is the class available? Yes, the next class is in March. The class that I have starting tonight, that class is full. The next one starts in March. I have not gotten a date yet, but I will put the date out on my website and I'll mention it here. So if you haven't done so yet, go to DanisSheldon.net, sign up for the account. I do send out emails. If you sign up, those emails will actually tell you more details about it. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.